Rich,
All right, just going live in a sec.
Rich, Rich. Look at the coloration on mine. Rich,
All right, just
you?
going live in a sec.
Rich. Look at the coloration on mine.
Okay, I'm going to mute everyone. All right.
I hear you. Oh, I can't hear.
I've been on mute. I'm so sorry. I've also been doing some solo exhibitions on Artsy, as well as the shows that are on the gallery page. Okay. So, okay.
Sure.
There we go. Okay.
Oops.
All right. So this is the Artsy page. It has a listing of our shows. This is our current show, Abstrakt, which we're going to be taking a look at. I've also, as I said, have a few solo exhibitions as well. We have a show that's just opening up now by J.D. Weiss. It's called Within the Silent Moments. This is an exhibition of work by Woodstock artist and photographer J.D. Weiss, who has a few people in the show as well. We also have a show by Andrea Geller. This is a bath series, and Andrea takes a look at the different steps in getting into the bath, the preparation, the actual submergence, and then the getting out of the bath. It's a whole spiritual experience for her. The current exhibition at the gallery, which was in March, is called Paper Trail, and it includes work by a number of artists in the Hudson Valley, all works on paper. I've extended this through July since the show was only up for about a week before I had to close due to the pandemic. So this show is up on Artsy as well, and you can see this on the walls at the gallery. And then finally, I have a show of work by Woodstock artist Linda Linton, who spent a year traveling the Sauk Hill River in the Catskills in the Hudson Valley of New York. She met a number of different people who have lived there for generations along the river and came out with some really, really beautiful paintings. Okay. Oh. All right. Okay. So the first artist that we have is Barbara Adrian Rosen. Barbara is an artist over in Woodstock. She creates all works on paper. She's very inspired by the landscapes in the Catskills and the Hudson Valley. This is a piece called Abstract 2, Catskill Abstract 2. And then we also have Catskill Landscape 2. These are all acrylic and collage on handmade paper. Okay. The next artist, this is Ed Berkey's. Ed is an artist in Woodstock. I have a number of Ed's work up on the Artsy site. Ed works in a number of different mediums. He's always challenging himself in the work that he creates. He does some really wonderful abstract work. He does some landscapes. He's very inspired by cubism, surrealism. So this piece is Fire Walker, created in 2019. It's acrylic on canvas. The second piece by Ed is called Blue Zone. This was also created in 2019. Is acrylic on canvas as well. It measures 34 by 23. Okay. The next piece, this is by Arlene Santana. Arlene lives in Connecticut. This is an untitled work. It's oil on wood, created in 2020. Give me 1 second, folks. Luis Alves. Luis lives in New Jersey. This is not as you'll see a lot of the works in the show are not what we would consider abstract particularly, but there's a lot of abstract elements in it. A lot of them are inspired by landscape, inspired by abstract. Lewis works a lot with existing commercial products. He's very inspired by pop culture. This is a piece called Hell. It's a handmade collage. He still uses scissors and does it the traditional way. And then this one is called Marilyn. It's an homage to Marilyn Monroe. It's got a number of little abstract elements in it. It's got some notes by Marilyn. It's got a number of different pieces that are inspired by what we know as Marilyn Monroe. Okay. All right, I'm sorry, let me get back now to our next piece. Okay, this is by Barbara Tepper-Levy. Barbara, do you want to come in and join us and tell us a little bit about the work?
Sure. I'm Barbara Tepper-Levy, and I am from New York City originally, and I've been here in the Hudson Valley about 14 years or so. I work in a lot of different media, and I would say that I came fairly late to working with acrylics and working in an abstract way. I have to say that I was trying to figure out what to say about my work. And one of the things that I came up with or came upon was the fact that my teachers always say to me, go easy on the colors, your colors are too bright. And I mentioned that to a friend who is not an artist, and she said, your works give me joy. So that was good enough for me. One other thing I want to say about this piece and the other piece is that I tend to look for images in my abstract work. To me, this looked like a poppy. I didn't go out to draw a poppy, but that's what it looked like. With the other one, it looked like a mountain range. So, and once again, that was another thing that is not necessarily what abstract is all about, or at least that's not what my teachers told me it was all about. But I like to find elements in it that I can relate to and that look like real things to me. Is that okay, Robert?
It's interesting because I see a lot with the abstract work when people come into the gallery. I always find that people are always trying to find something familiar in the abstract. A lot of people will just stand there and let the emotions sort of wash over them and the feelings of abstract and sort of take in the work that way. But there's a lot of people that can't release that. And they're always looking for something familiar in it. And I'm always excited to see what people see in the abstract work. It's not necessarily what I see a lot of times.
Right.
And Barbara, lives in Saugerties, New York.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right. This next piece is by Susan Sabino. Susan lives in West Stockbridge, Massachusetts. The first piece is called Two Spirits, and then the second piece is called October Red. They're both photographs. This piece, Two Spirits, is from her Gertrude's Garden body of work, which honors her grandmother, a loving force in her life. The title comes from the Native American term for members of the tribe who identified as their own unique gender. They were held in high regard, and she chose this title to honor her grandson and a dear friend, both of whom are transgendered. To her eye, she sees a bird within the soft petals, which reminds her of a line from the Emily Dickinson poem, "Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul." It's something that she thinks we can all identify with. This second piece is called October Red. It's from the Revision series, which is about how she views the world after injury from a violent attack. The process involves using lenses which mimic how she sees and gives insight into the world of domestic violence post-trauma. And this series is a call to action. Okay. This next piece is also photographed by Dan Goldman, who lives in Red Hook, New York. It's called Water is Life, created in 2019. It's a triptych, and the photograph was taken in the spring. It's a reflection in a stream of a tree and its buds. And it does have, this one also has a lot of very abstract elements, although it's not fully abstract. Okay, our next pieces are by Tom Hackett. Tom has two photographs. Tom, do you want to come in and tell us about these two?
Yeah, as with a few others, well, let me say first that my work is photography.
Yes.
As with a few others, it's not 100% abstract. In fact, I generally don't set about to create or look for an abstract image, but a lot of times it just comes out that way. This one takes advantage of the fact that we have a spider living between the pane and the screen of our kitchen window. So I let that mature, and then I took this photograph at a very wide open aperture, so it blurred the background as much as possible. And the next one is I manipulated a little bit more, mainly by turning it sideways. This was a picture of some ice that was flowing on the outside of a window and froze in various interesting configurations. So I put my camera, which actually was a cell phone in this instance, right up against the inside of the window and snapped the photograph. This one I also duplicated in mirror image, and then, as I said, took the horizontal image and made it vertical. I'm sorry, the vertical image and made it horizontal.
Tom, do you usually look for the abstract when you're with your camera? Something that's your.
I guess I'm always have that in the back of my mind. Sometimes it's a lot easier to find an abstraction such as this than other times.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next piece is also a photograph. This is by Marty Bannon, who lives in Albany, New York. It's called Portside Reflection from 2019. And this is what Marty has to say about his photography. Lacking a steady hand needed to paint or illustrate, I took my photography and computer graphics to satisfy my creative urge. I began shooting scenic vistas along coastal Maine, Hudson Valley, New York City, and my native capital district. As places close to my heart, they still are and will remain subjects of my work. However, after attending a number of workshops, I've expanded my repertoire in an effort to capture the picture buried in the picture. It is in this way that images arouse curiosity, forcing us to think about shapes, lines, contrast, light, and texture. We can then see and appreciate pieces of the mosaic ever present in our field of vision. I see artistic photography as a path enriching the senses, enhancing decor and invigorating imagination. In lessons and practice, we use our eyes, our mind, and camera to capture our surroundings in a way that works. So this is by Marty Bannon. Okay, next we have Nancy DeFlung. Nancy, are you with us? You want to tell us a little bit?
Hi. Can you hear me? I just unmuted.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi. I'm a photographer. I like to say, in the foothills of the Catskills, and always kind of dreamed of this place even long before I ever lived up here. So I'm a photographer, and really what I want to do with my work is follow the ethos of the Hudson River painters, who were trying to convey something of beauty, of the sublime, of the divine, bring that into people's lives. And a lot of my work is representational, in a quest to find out what could I do with my photography to make it unique, because there are a lot of straightforward photographers out there. I make a lot of my paintings look rather painterly. I apply, painterly looking filters to them. And then other times I will step out of the box a little bit more and do abstracts. And the two abstracts in this show are both done the same way, in that I moved the camera very slowly. In this case, this one is called "The Mind Has Mountains." That's a quote from Jared Manley Hopkins, one of his poems. The mind has mountains, and those particular mountains are looking across Cooper Lake in Ulster County. And when you do something like that, any photographer who does like that is going to take an awful lot of pictures like that and then pick out the one that they really think is best. And what I like about that one is that it's not just a blob that you can't identify. I think if you look at it, you can tell that that green row is trees, and then the mountains are up above it. And that's kind of what I like about that one. And the other picture is called Skogen. And there were two. First of all, the picture was taken 10 years ago in Sweden, and Skogen is the Swedish word for forest or woods. It's also the name of a book, a collection of black and white photographs of trees by Robert Adams, a very famous photographer, and the book is kind of a classic. But what happened with this one is I was driving through south of Stockholm with a friend. And then we're driving down this lane, this path, and there were all these trees, just like sticks, just right on both sides. And what I call a Bill Neal moment came into my head. Bill Neal is, to me, one of the most greatest photographers, and he does natural stuff, and he does a lot of things with the trees like that. And I said, stop, got to photograph this. So I took an awful lot of pictures of these trees as they were, just straightforward pictures, and some of them came out very nice. But then I decided to play with this as well. And this time moving the camera upside down. First one I showed you was the camera was moved side to side. In this case, I moved the camera upside down. I mean, sorry, up, right, up and down. And again, got a few of those, and this is the one that I really liked.
They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, the next pieces are by Leslie Landau. Leslie lives in Torrington, California. This piece is called Into Linane, and then the second piece is called Passing By. They're both oil on canvas, and it's 2019. Again, these are very well, they're landscapes, but they have a lot of very abstract elements to them. What Leslie says is, I have always held an immense respect for my natural surroundings, which has led me to my need to observe more intensely in order to see more clearly. I am intrigued with the movement of a day's light across natural surfaces and being able to capture a moment in time. As powerful and alluring as I find landscapes to be, I am captivated with the idea of taking my images into their own light, creating new spaces based upon what I've experienced, and transforming my impressions of natural form into places never before seen. These two pieces are by Leslie Landau. I am going to be doing a landscape show coming up in August at the gallery, and then it will also be online on Artsy. Okay, Gabriella, are you with us?
Hey. Hi, everybody.
Welcome, welcome.
My name is Gabriella. So my artistic practice generally focuses on process-based abstract paintings, and I'm really interested in examining our interactions and connections to the natural environment, to one another, and within ourselves. These two pieces are Propulsion 1 and Propulsion 2. They're 6 by 6 inches, and they're painted on plaster-coated wood panel with acrylic, ink wash, pastel, charcoal, and graphite. It was really fascinating for me working on this plaster in this way because it has like a dual contrasting quality of being very delicate and fragile, but also having a strength that is rigid and pretty unforgiving at times. So specifically, once you paint it, the paints, they absorb and stain the moment that they're laid down and resist a lot of further manipulation. So there isn't really the opportunity for going back, and each mark really matters. So surprises or mistakes, or when things come together, it's all just out there in the open, revealed to the viewer. And because nothing can really hide here, this specific process requires a certain vulnerability in being seen. And the immediacy that these materials demand taught me how crucial it is to stay focused on the present moment. So these paintings specifically, I see them as maps almost, and listening and paying attention to the visual language of mark making is so important. And I have to notice each message that each mark communicates. So if it's calm, bright, bold, or expansive, and that information will signal the next action or move. And then with each layer, a conversation begins to eventually unfold. And the marks and layers meet and roam, sort of guide the eye around and navigate through this space of vulnerability. And through this observing and exploring, the spaces just sort of reveal and transform and ultimately just become discovered.
Is this part of a larger series?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Okay, and do usually work on smaller works like this, or is this something new for you?
I don't know if it's my Gemini nature, but I go very, very small and then very, very big. So yeah, mostly I work with with plaster and raw stretched canvas.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You're beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, the next piece is by Joyce. It's called On the Top. Deborah lives in Saugerties, New York. She is very inspired by landscapes, as you can see, and spends a lot of time in nature as well. In the Hudson Valley, where the gallery is, we probably have the best of nature up there. It's gorgeous. The water, the mountains, the forests have a little bit of everything. Okay. This next piece, and this is the landscape section, if you haven't realized that yet. This next piece is by Laura Kopsek. It's called Dad's Pond. It's watercolor from created in 2018. Dad's Pond is a pond located on a friend's property, which is on Rock City Road, partway up Overlook Mountain. That's in the Hudson Valley in Woodstock. The property is like an old-fashioned camp. There is a sign beside the pond that reads Dad's Pond. In painting this work, I was inspired by the jaggedly electric energy of autumn and by my own father's wild, eccentric energy. The lines represent the marks that a person makes in the world. I was very close to my dad, who was full of life and quirky. In this painting of Dad's Pond, I sought to capture my dad's life force. While the pond has a solid, grounded feel to it, the autumn colors uproot and make things dance. So that's Dad's Pond. Kate Masters. Kate is an artist also in Saugerties that is very inspired by nature. This is a piece called Mood Indigo. It's comprised of countless layers of collage in acrylic paint, nuanced by sanding. It's 12 by 12 mixed media on a wooden board. The next piece is called Effervescence. Effervescent is also mixed media. It's a lively exchange of exuberant collage. There's acrylic paint and mark making on this as well. Okay, Alex, I thought I saw you. Are you here? Alex Markwith.
Reporting from Queens.
Nice, welcome. Welcome, Alex. So, let me
So my first work that's coming up is actually unusual in my practice. I do work almost exclusively in abstraction, but this is from a series of abstractions that I derived while looking at flowers, actually. So if you think about abstraction, there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And one of the ways is, like the cubists did, actually referring to still life or models or other traditional types of subject matter, and then deriving abstract forms from what you're looking at. There's a story about Picasso holding a shoe in one hand, and someone asks him why he's holding the shoe, and he says, "Oh, well, I have to look at something." And I think we don't know if those stories are true ever, but they're always amusing to think about. So I've done, several works in that way. I always work with a variety of materials. So this work actually this is the second one. It comes from a different type of tradition where I'm working very much viscerally and in an improvisational way with charcoal and ink and acrylic paint. For this work in particular, I remember I ran it under the sink at one point, and then dealing with what are the limitations of the material? At what point does the paper itself, it's a work on paper like both of these works are. What time does the paper actually start to degrade, and how much can I build up on it and how much can I distress it? And with these works, I'm always also cutting them and pasting them together. So that's why the surface itself is an unconventional shape, as you can see. And this series, this is from a larger series also that I did starting last year. I called it Eclipse because the process for me became very much about letting certain things show through and having a sense of light, while other aspects become hidden and it feels like shadows. So there's a play of depth within the abstract image.
Okay, wonderful. How many I take it that both of the series are larger?
Yeah, both of these are from larger series, and I tend to work that a series is never finished. It's always ongoing, and I can come back and revisit it over many years. So this piece, the floral study, is actually from 2014, and the other was from 2019. But as I was coming up, I was looking through my works recently, actually, and curating some here in my apartment, and I felt that they had a relationship to one another.
Yeah.
Sometimes I find these threads throughout my work, even if they're produced years apart, and that's something I really enjoy.
Sometimes it takes that distance to see that. Wonderful. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
The next artist is Malgorzata Oaks. There are two pieces from Malgorzata. Malgorzata lives in Ellenville, New York. This first piece is called Vestige 3, created in 2020. It's intaglio on BFK Reeves paper with electro etching. The second piece is called Passing Horizon. Passing Horizon is also intaglio on BFK Reeves paper. It's got soy wax, silkscreen fabric, aqua tint, acrylic airbrush aqua tint. And this is what Malgorzata has to say about these works. My latest body of work represents experimental approaches, focusing on search for alternative processes and ability to find new ways of repurposing elements found in nature, treating them as fibers while creating handmade paper or new matrices used in relief, intaglio or silkscreen process, while experimenting with found objects. I use repurposed, upcycled elements to speak about environmental awareness, involvement, inclusion, and pollution concerns. Pieces of string, plastic packaging, parts of sourced recycled textiles, reused found objects speak for the sustainable method of working with waste, giving random objects different meaning, telling a new story. Carrie Colnut. Carrie, are you here?
Yes, hi.
Welcome.
Hi. I'm a New Jersey-based artist that works mostly photographically. This work is titled Microscopic Studies, taking from the knowledge of what and who we are surrounded by in our everyday lives. I'm examining myself by photographing at a microscopic view. These pieces of microscopic information are transformed from identifiable forms, becoming separated from the original source to take on new shapes, and at times giving the possibility of being classified as something else altogether. Drawing from the process of identification, I am interested in how, with a change in context, something that we are so familiar with becomes something detached from our everyday lives. This work was made by using a microscopic camera, and the prints are black and white on metallic paper.
Wonderful. Is it a digital camera or is it traditional 2¼ or?
No, it's an actual like attachment on a microscope that is a camera, and it goes directly into the computer through an application. So it's like this piece that attaches to the top of the microscope.
Nice. Beautiful. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Our next artist is Shelley Davis. Shelley lives in Eldon, which is a little hamlet in Saugerties. Shelley has exhibited a number of works with Emerge Gallery in the past. Shelley's always challenging herself to create new works. And one of the things that I'm so pleased about is a lot of the themes that I come up with for the gallery really offers her an opportunity to challenge herself and a number of other artists as well, which I find really exciting. The Imaginarium, and then the second piece is called AR, both from 2020. It's really interesting because Shelley tries to find alternative ways of creating art by using different materials that are not as toxic to the environment and to the body. So she's always challenging herself in ways to find ways to get that encaustic feel without actually using encaustic. This is called Dots, and this is a collage. So that's Shelley Davis. And there's a number of Shelley's pieces in prior shows as well. Leslie Bodsey. Leslie has a pretty extensive collection of work here on Artsy, and I'm going to be doing a solo show for Leslie on Artsy as well come August. There's also going to be a display in the window at the gallery in August, which I'm very excited about. They're very cool plexiglass sculptures that Leslie's been creating. But let's bring Leslie on, and she will talk about the 2 donut pieces that are in the show. Leslie, you here? You might be on mute. Let's see. Leslie?
I'm here. Hi.
Great.
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute.
That's okay.
So thank you, Robert. So these 2 pieces that you're going to see are very much alike, and they're made with plexiglass. There's plexiglass holding the frame, and then there's felt, and then the little round circle is made, it's acrylic paint made in a donut baking pan. Like you might bake a donut, but I did acrylic instead. I like to have fun with my work. I like to be very playful, and particularly during the COVID crisis, I found myself going to my studio for many, many hours and making playful works because I was so upset. So it helped a lot to go and just try to have fun with the materials. So this is the other one. There's actually a set of 4 of these, and they fit together if you want, or you can have one on a wall. They also can go on the floor. So they're sort of a floor sculpture of 4 works, and it's kind of fun for kids. You can move them around. Because they're on plexiglass, they're very durable. And I started off my art career doing still lifes in watercolor, and then moving to oil. And then I started doing geometric abstraction. And more recently, I've started working with no brushes and just pouring materials, pouring paint, and seeing what paint can do. And so if you go to my website, which is just my name.com, I have some very interesting new works that are part of this series, and I call them gravity wall works. And they're basically big swaths of poured paint that you kind of hang on the wall with nails. And they're very interesting. They're different colors. They look like fabric, but it's not fabric, it's paint. And so today my parents are watching from Los Angeles, and they're 91 and 92. And I want to say hi. And I want to say that those wall hangings, if you go to my website, I'm calling them the shmatas. And that's a Yiddish word for rag. So I think they'll appreciate that. So anyway, I try to have fun with my work and go to my website. I have more fun things to see. Thank you.
Leslie's work is a lot of fun. I had the pleasure of seeing the skins that she's talking about, and they're really, really wonderful. And talk about playing with your art, even not just as playing with your art and creating your art as an artist, but playing with your art as an art appreciator and putting it up on the wall. These new pieces from Leslie is exactly that. You can sort of make all different configurations. They'll be up on the Artsy site as well in August. Leslie, always a pleasure. Thank you. Suzanne Parker. All right, wonderful. Suzanne has had a number of pieces in Emerge Gallery shows in the past. This piece, Suzanne lives in Bearsville, New York. This piece is called Bridal's Nest from 2020. It's alkyd and coated wire on canvas. And Suzanne says, having zigzagged between painting and sculpture, I always felt something was missing when working flat. Then she discovered Cat 324 AWG wire. I think that's how you say it. In all its vibrant colors and malleability, it was love at first sight. It allowed me to add an extra dimension to both my abstract and representational works. Is it a wire to communicate my ideas? Perhaps not. My love affair with this medium continues. And you can read a little closer so you can see all the really wonderful, wonderful wire. Suzanne, did you want to say something? Did you want to say anything about it, about the work?
I think you said what I would have said.
All right, great. I love it. I'm happy to have it here. And then the back here this is mounted on canvas. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, our next piece. These two pieces are by Isabella Cotarello, who lives in Kingston, New York. They're Minds Landscape Series number 21, and then the second one is 27. It's watercolor, markers, ink, pencil, on Arches paper, and a 3D pen, and they're three-dimensional. Isabella says that on March 13th of this year, she decided to physically distance from the outside world, as many of us have, and stay home with her husband and her two dogs. Before that day, she was working on a series of large watercolors that she called Minds Landscapes. She found that the name of the series was very appropriate for the experiences that we're all facing right now, but she didn't feel the energy within herself to continue working on such a large scale. So she decided to create smaller pieces that fulfill the needs of having something completed, to feel that there is an end to everything. The small pieces also gave her the opportunity to experiment with her new toy, which is the 3D pen, which is where all of this comes from. There is a smaller piece. There's another piece of Isabella's in the current paper show at the gallery. This is a second piece from the landscape series as well. And that is Isabel. Harold Oljar. Harold, are you here? Oh, here he is. He's coming in right now. Harold. Hello? Harold, are you here?
Yeah, I just got here.
Hi, Harold. Yes, I just saw. Welcome. Perfect timing.
Oh, wow.
We just got to your pieces. So this is the first one. You want to tell us a little bit about the two works and your process?
Okay, I'm hearing audio in the background. You know what I'm. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I had it playing on YouTube also. So are you hearing me? Am I okay? Am I okay?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I'm thrilled to have two pieces in the show. And I think they're sort of two moments in time in terms of abstract art. The Malevich work here is based on one of his images called the Knife Sharpener. It's at the Yale Museum. And it is not, totally non-objective abstract, but if you look at it closely, you will probably be able to get to see a little bit of an outline of a figure sharpening a knife. It's a little difficult to see that, but that's sort of what's in there. And I sort of, for this piece, I really like the busyness of it, the activity of it, and the energy in there, and the fragments of all the abstract pieces. It takes something of Malevich's, which is sort of almost non-objective, and turns it into a very busy non-objective piece. The next piece is the Homage to Saul LeWitt, and that was taken in Allentown at the museum there. And I think, Saul LeWitt, with his later wall pieces, and actually just sort of giving instructions for making them and making them sort of totally non-objective. And it was just sort of fun to play with the reality of what the images looked like. And the wall color was so brilliant that it really comes through in this piece. And I really love this piece because of the color, the vibrancy of that. The original Saul LeWitt was very horizontal and sort of angular, I guess, rectangular. It did not have any of these swirls and twirls in them. So I really feel as though I sort of spun the Saul LeWitt into this new image. And I guess that's about it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful piece. The colors are fantastic in this. It's so warming.
Yeah, and on the wall at the museum, it just had a very nice surface feel to it too.
Wonderful. And Harold, tell us a little bit about the process of how you do this.
I've been sort of slicing and rotating images. I take a slice of an image and I edit it, and then I put another layer, I duplicate that layer, put another layer on top of that image, rotate it, put another layer on top, and I'm making adjustments all along the way there so that the layers interact well. And once I've sort of gone 360 degrees, then I'll once again do another edit where I'll take part of that image and then piece it together with another part of the image. So it's a lot of sort of rotating, editing, and piecing the puzzle together.
Fantastic. They're really wonderful. Thank you, Harold.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, Ulf Loven. Ulf lives here in Saugerties, although he's originally from Sweden. This piece is called Syracuse. It's from 1988. It's an oil on canvas. As I said, Ulf was born in Stockholm. He was living in Southern Europe before settling in New York, where he studied at the Art Student League. Having spent a good part of his life in rural and third world villages, his landscapes derive from these periods. The urban experience resulted in both abstract and figurative renderings, sometimes taking the shape of memories that bucolic experience, be they landscape or a poetic state of mind. I was just visiting with Ulf about a week ago in his studio, and he's got some really fantastic new works that he's a new series that he's working on that I'm hoping to be able to put on the walls at the gallery soon. Next work is by Colleen Lineberry. Colleen is from Middletown, New Jersey, and I knew Colleen when I had run a gallery in New Jersey. This first piece is called After Dark, and then the second is called What She Hears, both from 2019. It's oil, and oil stick on paper. Her abstract oil and cold wax paintings expresses her passion for the feeling and energy of a place or a moment, often in a natural world. Sometimes they directly express a wild landscape. Other times she's following the emerging painting in an organic, intuitive way. Her gestures lead, and what evolves is color, texture, shape, and line, reflecting her interior landscape as well. Her imagination meets the freedom and solace that she gathers during the process. She uses a handheld squeegee brayer and other materials such as charcoal, oil sticks, graphite, and more to layer oil paint mixed with cold wax to create textured paintings on wood, panel, or paper. One gesture informs the next as she explores endless possibilities. These are Colleen Lineberry. Maxine Davidovich, I love these pieces. I was so pleased when they came in. So Maxine is an artist in Woodstock, and Maxine's going to talk about these pieces. Come on.
Hi, Robert. Thanks so much for including me. I love these pieces too. And I'm also glad that you included them. About 4 years, I'm primarily a painter. I've been a painter in both oil, watercolor, most recently acrylic. But about 4 years ago, I absolutely fell in love with the process of doing monotypes. And every Friday, you would find me at the Woodstock School of Art under the tutelage of the fabulous Kate McLaughlin. And then March came along and we were locked out of the printmaking studio. So I have now an entire flat file filled with rejects, or not quite rejects, but oh, I loved that corner, but you know, it didn't quite make it. So what I did with this series, and I've been doing them pretty regularly for the last couple of months, is take those rejects and slice them. I'm doing collage, but I'm limiting myself to collage in a way that just vertically slices so that the surface of the page is as flat as a single monotype would have been. And so it has that very smooth surface because the slices meet up to each other rather than overlap. I'm also obsessed as in my recent work with the conflict in our world between the human element and the organic natural world. So the geometric against organic is very much a part of what I've been about, both taking hard straight edges and bumping them up against very organic forms that clearly have a reference to nature. There's always nature in what I do. So that's what I'm about.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm out here in West Shokan, by the way.
Oh, it's West. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. A lot of my life is in Woodstock, but my home base is West Shokan.
Okay. All right. Next is Anne-Marie Hofstadter. Anne-Marie is an artist that lives in Saugerties, and Anne-Marie just recently, only in the last couple of years, has been painting. She's been painting, taking classes with Chrissy Bishop. This first piece is called Nature's Envy, and then the second piece is called Floating. They're both alcohol ink on Yupo paper, which I recently, learned about and just really like the feel of it and the look of it. So Anne-Marie says she enjoys working with ink recently. She loves the vibrancy and freedom of its fluidity. In this time of stress and uncertainty, having a way to express herself has been so helpful. Nature in all of its glory permeates everything she does on a daily basis. So the other piece isn't there. She's had the privilege of being close to amazing hiking trails that she takes advantage of, and no matter what the weather is like, she can glean some beauty and channel it into her work. So this is Anne-Marie Hofstadter. I have two pieces here by Annette Jarrett. Annette's from Port Ewan, New York. Annette's exhibited a number of times with us. These are acrylic on canvas, and they're actually cut acrylic or cut canvases that are collaged together. And Annette says, art is a window to another world, and the artist creates that vision. Some people work in the garden, she invents it. She must add texture, color, or her own parts to a collage. As an oil painter, she incorporates that sensitivity into her work. Here's the second piece. She explores a particular theme, then moves on. If it starts to become too familiar, she tries another direction. Nature always touches her. These pieces are cut painted canvas inspired by her spirit dancing group. She highlights the juxtaposition of text and form in a decorative pattern. Works are adhered to canvases and it's sealed with an acrylic medium. So these two are by Annette Jarrett. Dorothea Marcus. I saw Dorothea sneak in here a little while ago. Are you here, Dorothea?
Yeah, I've been here. Yep.
Excellent. Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
There?
I'm a photographer and collage artist. Am I unmuted? Yes. I'm a photographer and collage artist based in Woodstock. And this photograph, Tokyo Abstraction, is interesting because it's a companion piece to a collage that's in the Works on Paper show called Japan is Calling. I had started doing photography inspired by trips to Morocco and Cuba, where there were very, brilliantly covered buildings and lots of opportunity for more abstract compositions with geometric architecture and textures and the kind of thing I'm drawn to. And it was a challenge in Japan because we were first in Tokyo for about 2 weeks, and Tokyo was pretty much destroyed in World War II. And so the city is basically all gray modern buildings, except for little pockets somewhere. And so I found I did most of my photography at night, and this was taken at night. And it's a side of the building that had some neon lighting, but also had plants. The green on the top are plants that were going down the side of the building to give it some texture and interest. So this photograph, excerpts from it are in the collage that's in the Works on Paper show at the gallery. But it was interesting for me to be somewhere where I had to take my aesthetic and my approach and adapt it to being in a different environment. And that's what I've been doing now during the quarantine period, because I'm not a nature photographer, which is what we have around us in so much abundance. So, I've been struggling looking for more abstract forms or things that can appeal to my eye.
Thank you. I'm really loving what's coming out of your the Japan series, Dorothea.
Thank you.
Back, there's some really, really wonderful work coming out of it, and some fantastic papers you picked up too.
Oh yeah, the collage has these some beautiful washi papers with really interesting textures.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dorothea.
Thank you.
Okay, our next artist is Bruce Barnard.
Now I can't get my password for.
Okay. Bruce is from Brewster, New York. This first piece is called Entropy 1 from 2018, and then the second piece is called Off the Grid from 2017. It's acrylic on canvas. My process involves building up many layers of paint and other medium. With each layer, I utilize stencils and household objects to create shapes and edges. With each layer, depth builds and intersections form, resulting in a composition of various entanglements. This is called Off the Grid, the second piece. My major influences are Kandinsky and Jackson Pollock, particularly for their color palettes and complicated abstract compositions. Okay. Suzanne Kirshner.
Hi.
Hi, Suzanne. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for including me.
And I just want to mention that Suzanne has another piece that's in the current Works on Paper show as well. If you want to, after hop over to have a look at that piece too. It's really beautiful, the orbs piece. All right. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, this one is for Violet Bars. As you can see, I tend to work with this. This one really shows the line where some of them don't as much. But I tend to work with this loose line, and then I build it up and build it up. And I'm constantly turning and making the layers. and I tend to lose myself in the work as I am creating them. Just as we are multifaceted, multi-layered, I try to bring that into my work, but then simplify it, and where the bars with the geometric shapes, which are trying to force us into, force us into what we think we should be doing instead of what we really truly want to do, which is more about the line and the layers in the background. And this one is kind of special because I started to incorporate color into my work a little bit more, where before, for a while, I was really just using black and white and building up value through layers of the ink. And then I started playing with color a little bit more, which, like the one in your gallery, has the blue in it, which is really kind of new to me. This one was more traditional, and it's still those short little lines that build up, that create the gradation and the layers. This one was actually from a prompt and about fences, and I kept picturing, instead of a fence, a barbed wire fence, which is out in my yard, when I was a child growing up, and we would just kind of, instead of having it, seeing it as a barrier, seeing it as something where we can just look at it a little bit differently and push it down or pull it up and just continue on with our journeys, with our adventures. So even though we come across boundaries in our lives, not really seeing it as a barrier, but seeing it as an opportunity to move beyond it. Questions?
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
The barbed wire piece, not so much abstract, but I liked it a lot. It has a little bit of abstract elements, but I decided.
Yeah, I simplified and isolated, which brings in that abstract part.
Okay, the next two pieces are Pete Murrah. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. I don't know if you can see the edges, but there's a little bit of depth on the edges. This is the first piece. And then this is called Fresh Widow. This is the second piece. Pete lives over in Beacon, New York. The first piece was called Enter the Zip from 2020. And the second piece is called Fresh Widow from 2018. They're both acrylic on canvas. And Pete says, painting should be about what it's about and not about narrative or symbolism. So that's Pete Murrah. A little bit of minimal abstraction there for you. Okay, Nancy O'Hara. Nancy has exhibited a number of works with the gallery in the past. She lives in Germantown, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley. This one is called Forest for the Trees, created in 2017. It's mixed media on paper, pencil, pastel, and Conti. Her purpose in making art is to go beyond words into the deep belly of creativity. It is to meet herself in the wellspring and have a conversation with the viewer, to communicate in a deep and intimate way at first sight in an instant. This is the second piece called Uncertainty. Truly though, my purpose is no purpose, only to be in harmony with each line, each splash of color, and splatter of ink as it strikes the painting surface to reveal what is already there. In life, my life is my greatest work of art, and the small canvases I draw on are part of the vocabulary. So these are by Nancy O'Hara. Roxy Johnson. Let's bring Roxy up. I just saw you.
I just muted myself.
Great.
Okay. I can't hear you, Robert.
Roxy has two pieces in the show. So let's go to the first piece. This one is called Silent Water Deep. So go ahead, Roxy.
Okay, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, Robert. Okay, first I'd like to say just a little bit about my inspiration, because creating became a voice at a very young age for me. And that was because I didn't feel I had one. And so it became my go-to in difficult times. It grounds me and it offers me solitude, which especially at this point in time, I found has been, very useful for me. Painting so often feels like an intimate psychological dig for me. And the two pieces we're going to look at are from a series completed last year. I am definitely prompted by a cognitive and an intuitive approach, and I draw a great deal of inspiration from natural and organic form, as well as lost and disintegrating fragments from everyday life. Okay, the See in Me, this small piece, is done on Mylar. I paint on both sides of the transparent Mylar and collage onto it. It's an additive and subtractive process for me that creates translucencies. There's peeling and scraping involved that creates textural effects. And I also work with rice paper a lot, which also has a transparent quality to it. The process itself has become my way of sifting through all the chaos of the uncertain and fragile world, and I apply sort of an odd sense of order to it, hoping to reveal often an unexpected vulnerability and a subtle beauty that lies beneath the surface of things.
Beautiful. Roxy's had a number of pieces at the gallery before, and I'm really, really pleased to have these two in this show as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roxy.
Mm-hmm.
The next two pieces are by Martha Hill. Martha's from Kingston, New York. This first piece is called Verdant, and the second piece is called Whirl, both from 2019. They're oil and pencil on paper. In her art, she explores color relationships, the use of space, texture, and the expressive nature of nature. Her work is abstract and sometimes evolves into abstracted landscapes. Whether it's oil painting or pastel drawings, the work often begins with an image or color that has emerged from the subconscious. This is the second piece in the show, called Whirl. She generally works with a palette knife on paper and adds marks with pencil or other materials. Her drawings are mainly pastel and pencil, but she also includes charcoal, Conti, or ink. Whatever the material, she moves between layering and removing the medium. Through this additive and reductive process, the composition evolves and the painting or drawing reveals itself, sometimes a far distance from the original image. All right, next we have Sandra Nystrom. Sandra, are you here? Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you go.
Oh, great. Hi, everybody. Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for including me in the show.
Absolutely, they're lovely.
These pieces came from a body of work that I've been working on for the last 9 months. The challenges I gave myself was to work on 4 to 6 pieces that are one size, one palette, one type of substrate, work on them at the same time, and then stop working on them as quickly as possible to capture the emotion. I pin my work on a wall and get each piece hanging at the same height and at the same distance from each other. Then I decide what my palette will be, whether I will mix paint or use oil sticks, what values I will mix, and how many of each of these shades I have mixed will I direct myself to use. I will select my brushes, other marking tools, and will lay them next to the palette. I want to have each piece relate to each other but to have its own personality. So I will move from piece to piece, making my marks, choosing often the same shade to work with across the pieces, and then adding different marks, turning the works, using brushes, palette knives, shapers, and rags. My subconscious is working fast and digging deep. I find it interesting to see certain marks, lines, and shapes continuing to repeat, and it is at that point that I try to stop. I evaluate each piece for composition and meaning. Each piece of art must relate, but must make its own statement and stand alone. Create a family and individuals. So I looked up, these pieces are called The Power of Orange. I was really drawn to this orange, and I love working in complementary colors. So I looked up the meaning of orange, and it was interesting to me. Orange relates to gut reaction or gut instincts, as opposed to the physical reaction of red or the mental reaction of yellow. Orange brings spontaneity and a positive outlook on life, and is a great color to use during tough economic times, keeping us motivated and helping us to look on the bright side of life, which was very interesting to me. So these are 2 of the 6 pieces. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. It's really interesting. I've been seeing a lot more artists using orange lately, and I wonder if it has anything to do with the times that we're in. It's an interesting, it is, and I'm warming up to it. And these 2 pieces, I think, really highlight the color beautifully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Great.
These next 2 pieces, these are by Timothy Ebnith. There's 2 pieces by Timothy. Timothy's from Kinderhook, New York. This first one is called Deep Forest, created in 2016. The second is Magic Forest from 2017. They're both oil and graphite on paper. Tim makes paintings, drawings, collages, and assemblages. His mediums are acrylic paint, house paint, charcoal, graphite, oil stick, as well as metal leaf, glitter, and rhinestones. He's always on the lookout for interesting found objects or paper like wrappers, text, or images that speak to him. They're special in that they have a history or reference and memory or evoke an emotion. This is the second piece. Again, another really wonderful use of orange. The art he makes is autobiographical. They're often inspired by memories, daydreams, and emotions. He works on several pieces at the same time and works quickly. His intuition guides his use of materials, mark making, and how a work comes together. There is a spiritual connection in his work that constantly surprises him with the magic of art making. So these are by Timothy Ebnith. Okay, oh, I love this piece. Maureen McNeil. Maureen, saw you here. Are you here with us? Let's see. Here you are. You have to unmute, Maureen. Maureen?
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Okay, great. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. This is really exciting being here. I come from a traditional fiber background, although out of college I became a welder to try and, learn a non-traditional skill and get away from the gender political issues of fabric. But in the last 20 years, I've been making large mixed media pieces, often like 9 feet by 9 feet. These, these coalesce into a series, usually a series of 20 or so. But fabric is so close to the skin, it's like flesh. And so it's very sensuous to me, and brings up a lot of emotions and memories and the imagination. So this piece I think is a good example of my work. It has a lot of texture. It's got different materials like silk and satin and cotton and plastic and tulle, transparency and opaque. I like to overlap and these transparent materials. And it even has a piece of my favorite dress in there, which I usually put some personal piece in. And the effect of the fraying texture and the bleeds of overlapping color and the puckering and the lines of the stitch. I don't know if you can see them there, but they're kind of pathways or dances or footprints or sometimes even little drawings within the piece. So it's a very time-consuming process. It's kind of like a hunter and gathering sort of process in the beginning, finding the materials or the lines that I feel like I want, and then cutting and pinning and hand sewing. And, you know, the hand stitching is very meditative. I'm inspired by fashion, architecture, nature, landscape, literature. I'm also a writer. So, you know, or a whole culture like Japan or Peru. And, you know, the themes are really, it's the theme of freedom for me is really I see the canvas as an opportunity to practice freedom. And also inclusion. I like a piece of art to have kind of be a whole organism and a standalone or look at it as a moment in eternity or infinity that includes like the past, the present, and the future. But it's, you know, so I have a lot of inspiring people that came before, like Louise Bourgeois, who said a stitch is an act, every stitch is an act of repair, which I really feel also. Whitman, Bucky Fuller, Dr. Martin Luther King, you know, freedom is never voluntary. It must be, freedom must be demanded, you know, and so I demand that of myself. And it's freedom of movement that I'm interested in, freedom of expression. And this is what I feel my work is about. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you.
Do you usually use work in fiber or do you use other materials as well?
No, there's plastic in there. The red circles that you see in this pinkish area is plastic. There's tulle, there's found objects sometimes, sometimes beads or wire.
Your work in general though, I mean, do you use
in general, it's fabric based. I start with a big piece of fabric and then draw on it and then work. My studio's in Claverick, and so that's why this series is Clover Reach, which is the English for the Dutch name Claverick.
Wonderful.
So thank you.
Thank you. This next piece is by German Rosanes Monterde, who lives in Cuba. This is called Ofrenda from 2018. It's referencing the African religion Santeria, which is still being practiced in Cuba today. And the work is oil, I believe. Mixed media, 16 by 12. Our next piece is by Andrea Wolcott Perez. Andrea lives in Saugerties, and Andrea is usually a potter. She does really wonderful pottery. This piece is called Flares from 2020. It's copper flashing, felt, and acrylic drippings. Andrea has been really challenging herself with doing a lot of collage and some paintings as well, and really expanding her range. So her collages always start with a single element. This time it was an acrylic paint that was left over from an abstract pour painting. The arcs made me think of an image. She played with the placement and background until it clicked together. The copper flashing, which she uses a lot in her pottery, was used as the final element to tie it all together. And the frame was also painted to be an extension of the collage itself. And the frame is made of recycled barnwood. So that's Andrea Wolcott Perez. Bobby Esmark. Bobby, are you here?
I'm here. How are you?
Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be part of the show with all these wonderful artists. It's so great to hear you all and meet you this way.
Yes, I like it.
Thanks, Robert. So this piece was purely a moment when I wanted to go. I started printmaking again about a year and a half ago. So the idea of process and all of that was so different because I'm mostly a painter for the past 40 years or so. And I had been working on a lot of different kinds of monoprinting at the Woodstock School of Art and really getting used to using that medium again in different ways. And I went into the studio one Friday morning and I said, I just want that feeling of rolling out a beautiful layer of ink. So this one really came, oddly enough, from the materials themselves, because for those of you who have done it, or those of you who haven't, just getting that ink on the roller, hearing that connection, and wanting to do a what quote unquote simple, right, monotype, a simple roll of the ink. And these are colors mixed. It's not pure black, but as a painter, I've never been able to get that kind of solid. I mean, it's not everyone knows the Rothko ability to get those huge areas of color, but when I paint with oil, I don't get that. And I haven't ever really felt that same thing as you can get with rolling a beautiful layer of ink. So I went in and I just said, I want these two colors, I want to roll it and see how they meet. And this is really what happened. And I can call it many things, but that's how that one came to be, just wanting to be freer and feel. It's the materials themselves are just luscious sometimes. So that was almost a very relief driven impulse. This piece is an odd one for me, and it's actually, I walk in the morning in the Mohonk Preserve mostly. I live in High Falls, and I've never been a plein air painter. Over the years, and I've lived here about 40 years, I realized that my marks and my design really are a response to the woods and the rocks of the gunks. And this piece in particular, and it came from an impulse one morning. Again, I don't do it on site, and I rarely, because I'm walking with my dog, I don't even take pictures or sketch very much on those mornings. I just couldn't tell. I was standing there in person in front of this cliff that's called Lost City, and I couldn't tell. The light was, it was low and the light was behind me, and I couldn't tell what are the trees, what is the shadow, where is the rock line, what is the color of this rock, what is the color here? I couldn't tell. So several months later, I was in the printmaking studio and I wanted to get that idea of the space of the rock and the verticality and the horizontal, and it just this is what happened. So that was really more an impulse of something I saw as remembered, which is what most of my even works that refer to landscape are. And that's what that one was.
Wonderful. Yeah, that black is fantastic.
Yeah, and Robert, I hope someday you'll see it in person. It's really it's black with a little tiny bit of Prussian blue in it, tiny bit.
I would love to see. We need to talk.
Well, maybe one day.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Okay, our next artist, this is Lynn Sable. This is again very landscape inspired by some abstract. Lynn lives in Winstead, Connecticut. This is called Bush from 2020 and it's oil on canvas. Originally an art student turned medical librarian, painting in oils, producing monoprints and enjoying fluid art just for the fun of it. 50 years painting and learning and perfecting her art. So this is Lynn Sable. And Marjorie Magid. Marjorie has exhibited with us a number of times through a number of different shows. I have a extensive collection of Marjorie's work on Artsy. You can see her under our represented artists. I love Marjorie's work. Everything that I see of her just makes me smile. It's so whimsical. It's really playful. So let's bring Marjorie on, and she's going to talk about this song to Billy. Come on up, Marjorie.
Sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Robert?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I was talking and I was muted. Okay, well, thank you very much. I love being in your shows. And this piece is unusual for me because usually I do something much more representational, not realistic, but representational. You can see the object. But I wanted to do something abstract. And I had this vision of a kind of a movement. And then when I started painting it, I had recently lost my very sweet King Charles Cavalier dog. And I realized that I was kind of this little black shape on the upper right side was his ear. I had started with his ear. And as I was painting it, it became very, very emotional for me. And I realized that I was somehow connecting with him and singing to him, which is why I called it Song to Billy. So, as I said, and I don't usually do abstract, but I found a lot of pleasure in this. And the way it kind of existed by itself without a reference to anything else, even though what I usually start painting doesn't look exactly like what I end up painting. This kind of existed by itself, and it was very emotional piece. So I really enjoyed painting.
It's wonderful, and I think like I was saying earlier, that a lot of times with abstract, you just need to let the emotions take over.
Yes, it was surprising that it was that emotional.
Yeah. Well, even in viewing it as well.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Marjorie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. The next piece is by Gina Petreka. Gina lives in Springfield, New Jersey. This is called Graffiti Wall 2012. Gina says, it's a photograph. I want people's perceptions to be fooled a bit. I want them to see objects outside of their normal purpose than we typically see. I want them questioning, what is this I'm looking at? I want to apply an abstract approach to my still life work, photographing everyday life-size objects as tiny miniatures is a surreal perspective I enjoy creating. So this is a piece by Gina Petreka. And then keeping on the graffiti theme, we have Susan Phillips. Susan splits her time between New York City and Saugerties. This piece is called Graffiti New York City. It's a photograph. Susan searches for mundane subjects, those often overlooked by people rushing by. Street abstractions formed by the effects of traffic and erosion, artistry in torn papers and restructured surfaces, oxidized rust surfaces, reflections in store windows, randomly displayed flowers and food, ice patterns. She hopes viewers can appreciate the commonplace in a fresh way. And I've exhibited a number of Susan's works before, and all of her works take on exactly what she was talking about, a real abstract feel to it in the everyday. So that's Susan Phillips. Robert Greco, really pleased to have works by Robert Greco in this show. I've exhibited Robert's work a number of times in the past. I have a pretty extensive collection of Robert's work on Artsy. Robert is an abstract painter, and I was just at Robert's studio the other day looking at some brand new work that we're going to be putting up on Artsy, and just really, really wonderful. He's got a really great way with color. So come on up, Robert.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you. Thanks, Bob, for having me in the show. So I actually work in several different mediums. I sort of vacillate between sculpture, photography. I also do clothing design, marketing design, but painting seems to be one of my consistent mediums. So I will jump from one to the other because I have a terribly short attention span. So that sort of works to my advantage to be able to move between the mediums. I've always been very, very drawn to minimalist and abstract work. And I think that has to do with having a short attention span. So sort of breaking things down and being more interested in the texture and the movement and the dimension of what we're working in. Some of these pieces here, I see that this is an orange piece that we've talked about orange a couple of times today. This series that I worked in was in a series of 15. And I sort of pushed myself to use colors that I don't usually use. If left to my complete own devices, I think everything would be very black and white and very minimalist. So sometimes you do need to challenge yourself with that. And you know, that's basically my process. I do use a lot of acrylic, and at the end I'll use a wax medium to sort of seal it and give it that extra texture, along with like some scratches, and so it gives it a little bit more depth and motion. That's it.
They're wonderful. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
There's, as I said, there's a number of pieces from the series are on Artsy. Just have a look up Robert Greco. Thanks, Robert. Susanna Ronner. I've exhibited a number of Susanna's work in the past, and actually right now on the back wall of the gallery, I started featuring artists, and Susanna is, her work is featured. There's a handful of monoprints that are hanging in the gallery. They're also available to view on Artsy, along with a larger collection of Susanna's work. Susanna is an artist in Woodstock, New York. This first piece is called Conversing, and it's a monotype from 2020. From the beginning, her visual work has resonated to the emotional depths of music and dance. And you can really, really see that in her work. There's so much movement to it, and I understand where the music and dance comes. Design work, paying close attention to how light image, white space on the page, and how her viewer engages with it. And her monotypes, how disparate pieces dance around, bringing one's eye to specific spots in relation to others in a constant round of energetic connection. It is all design, dance, music, and art. I like this piece a lot. This is a brand new piece. And Susanna doesn't really work all that much in black. Her colors, well, she does work in black, but a lot of color combinations along with that. Not so stark as this one, which I was immediately drawn to. That one little strip of red, just love it. So she continues, as with jazz, she approaches each monotype plate as an improvisation. She meets the canvas, the acrylic plate, with trusting curiosity and sees where it takes her. She's thrilled that her design eye informs her artwork and that her artwork ignites her design imagination, and she's grateful for it all. So these are by Susanna Ronner. I encourage you to stop by the gallery and come see the work that we have on display of hers. Again, it's up through the rest of July. And I did want to mention the gallery is opening up on July 3rd. It'll be open again. So these are Susanna Ronner. And Rita Sherry. Rita has a piece in the paperwork show that's going on right now as well, although it's sold. So, but it is still there if you wanted to come and see it, and it is online as well. So come on up, Rita. Let's hear about these pieces.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Can you hear me? Robert?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I have, well, first of all, my first love has always been sculpture. I've been making sculptures for probably 30 or 40 years, often figurative. And when I started painting and printmaking, they all seem to connect to each other. They're not disparate pieces. I'm very drawn to what's called outsider art and indigenous art. And I think that if I see myself in any sort of category, it would be connected to that. I don't start with a preconceived notion, but inevitably figures emerge from the paint or the skull or the ceramics, and they begin to tell their own story. And as they grow, their story moves out of me from my insides, from what's been called forth, and becomes their story. And what I enjoy so much is feeling and listening to the stories that emerge as I create these works. Once they're finished, I feel like they're not my stories anymore. They're the stories that whoever looks at it feels by looking at the painting. And this one is called Orange Circle, so here's your orange again. Not consciously done as was described, but it needed that. He needed that. It's hard for me to talk about them because they become their own creations, and whatever people choose to see in them, I feel like is up to them and not up to me to decide. Thank you so much, Robert, for having me in the show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'm really pleased to have them. Thank you, Rita. The next artist, this is Roberta Sickler. Roberta lives in the Woodstock area. She's a fantastic abstract artist. I'm a big fan of Roberta's work. Exhibited a number of her pieces in the past. This piece here is called, love the title, Eating Glass on the Beach. You know, the thing about the titles with abstract, I mean, you could really say anything. A number of artists have asked me in the past, oh, what should I call this? And I always caution them that, you know, whatever, especially with abstract work, whatever you call it, you're going to be planting something in the viewer's mind. So they're going to be looking for something in there that will reflect the title. But I don't see anything about eating glass on the beach here. This second piece is called Open Book. Really, really wonderful use of color here with Roberta. Roberta, you know, does some really wonderful, she uses colors in a really magical way. So this is Roberta Sickler. Okay, Artem Sorosky. I really like this series. It's a mask series that were presented, and I wanted to really pleased that with us here. So come on up, let us tell us about the series and this piece in particular.
Okay, thank you. Hi to everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine.
Right? Okay. This particular artwork belongs to the series called Faces, and is mostly inspired by the things you could experience and you cannot describe by words. It's very much about some Zen and Buddhist mentality, because there are forces which belongs to each human being. There are things which influences each of us, but sometimes we cannot understand them and describe them in some particular way. So mostly I work in a way of visioners. So like several days is very, how to say, it's like very meditative for me. And several days I just carry in my mind some visions, some appearances, and then I work really, really fast, like being moved, I don't know, by someone else. So this is how like things happen. I guess this is it. Thank you.
Thank you. How many are there a number in the series? Is it a series that you continue to work on?
There are 6 artworks.
6. Okay, great. Wonderful. And where can we see the rest of the 6? Are they available online anywhere?
Yeah, sure. There is a website called stickswaters.com.
Okay.
Because I use this like second name, like JSticks. So it could be found on stickswaters.com.
You're wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, our next artist is John Werner. John, I saw you here. Did you want to talk a little bit about your work, or I can go ahead and present it? Not a problem. This first piece is called Open Air. It's from 2019, and it's, oh, I'm sorry, it disappeared. Here we go. Okay, this is Open Air. It's from 2019, and it is photography. It is a composite of different photographs. The second piece is called Blue Diary, also from 2019 as well. John is an exclusive stock photographer for Getty Images and also for iStock Photos. And I just want to zoom in a little bit for there's a lot going on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, wonderful, great.
Okay, great.
Please tell us about these pieces, John. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, my background is in painting, and I was a painter for many years. And but I always did photography. I always enjoyed photography. And I guess about 15 years ago, that became my main medium to work in. And interestingly enough, a lot of people think of photography as being realism. And conversely, people think of painting and sculptures being realism and abstraction. But I think that photography can also be abstraction.
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of elements in, the natural world that are abstract. And, using a photograph is a great way to capture that. I fool around with the camera myself, and
as double exposures.
Yes, exactly.
And then I take the images and then I work on them in Photoshop. And so what I do is I look for patterns. I look for interesting combinations of photos, and then I layer them together and then fine tune them in Photoshop. And sometimes I'll layer additional photos on top of other photos. And what I like is this idea of motion, stillness, interplaying with one another, and kind of going back and forth, playing with color and playing with light. So I hope that makes some sense.
Absolutely. And it's great use of color.
Oh, they're frozen up.
Really nice use of color, John. Thank you so much. Okay. Let me bring.
Talk again. Say something.
Here we go.
So I don't know if you guys can hear me, but
yeah. Yes, John.
Sometimes I freeze up here with my computer.
That's okay. It was a great use of color. Thank you so much. I'm really glad.
Embarrassing. Oh my God.
Okay, our next artist is Michelle Tomasai. Did I pronounce that correctly, Michelle? If I didn't, I'm sorry if I put
No, you did not. Tomasi.
Tomasi, okay.
Tomasi.
And I think you told me that once before. I'm sorry. Please tell us about these two pieces. More orange.
Sure, yeah, and that was a very interesting comment that Sandra made. I don't even remember the last time I've used orange, and these are my most these pieces I did in January, February, and so when we see the other piece, you'll see I use orange very obviously. So really quick, in general, I am an abstract painter, minimalist drawer. I would say my work is much more simpler than what I have in the show. Usually I'm more concerned with formalistic, forms, light, simplicity. But these two pieces are a real departure for me. So basically, both of these pieces really, I really made an intention to work through a personal situation in both. There were two different pieces, two different, and using art really as a form of catharticism. So these pieces are both very layered. They each start with a stream of conscious writing, each about a specific event going on that I was working out in each of them. And then really the whole process, I really moved through the whole process of looking into a situation and healing and finding catharsis in it, and then having fun, which, so we have the anger, the pain, and then as we move closer to the surface, just the fun with the paint. And then, I work very intuitively and with free association. So the other piece that has the name Sugar and Spice and Everything Dice was just some associations I made with some of the visual that and forms that came through. I generally like to have fun. Like, again, I'm still, this is sort of a new direction for me. So it's very interesting for myself. I really feel like these two pieces capture a very specific moment in time. They're an event captured on the paper. And yeah, so thank you for letting me share it with you guys.
Absolutely.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Michelle.
Robert.
I like the direction you're going in. You said this is a new direction. I like where you're going.
Thank you.
To see more. Thanks so much. More orange. Now, Sandra, I had no idea how much orange I was bringing into this show until you mentioned it. And it's really interesting how organic that whole process works. Because when I was looking at curating the show, I like the work to really speak to each other, and it's important to me that it really connect and that you go on a journey from beginning to end when you see the show. And maybe that was one of the unconscious threads was the orange elements in all of the pieces. Here's some more orange. This is by Mimi Young. Mimi is an artist in the Hudson Valley as well. This piece is called Tabletop. It's acrylic and graphite on paper. This second piece is called One or Two Things. This is oil and graphite on a panel. Mimi is a mark maker, and her current paintings are notations on the locations near her home. The valley, the woods, the fields, and the natural breakdowns that occur is what she uses as references. She works from the most basic concepts of birth, age, death, rebirth, or create, decay, repair, and renew. It is important to her to allow the past to be seen as though through. She finds and repeats motifs that facilitate her experience of the shallow space she works within, adding and subtracting along the way. Mimi has right now at the gallery window, she's got some very cool little abstract paper sculptures in the window. There's probably about 8 of them. So if you're in the area, come by and have a look. They're a lot of fun. I'm really pleased to exhibit Mimi's work. I've had her in a number of shows, and her, she does a lot of abstract work, and her work fit perfectly in this show. So thank you, Mimi, for contributing, and I hope you're doing okay. All right. The next artist is Rob Wade. This is called 10 Birds from 2020. Rob lives in Mount Tremper, New York. This is a digital drawing. Just a little, I've been warming up to digital. I haven't been a big fan of digital, but I've been warming up to it. And when I see something like what Rob's creating with digital drawings, I get pretty excited. So these are really wonderful. It's called 10 Birds. His work explores the relationship between the traditional methods and techniques of art with the current awareness of a new age of creativeness. Here's another piece called Sandpiper that's in the show, also a digital painting. His influences are diverse as Milton Avery and Susan Rothenberg. He finds inspiration in those artists and embracing their ways. So this is Rob Wade. And the last artist that I am going to present is J.D. Weiss. J.D. is, I'm a big fan of JD's work. JD's had a number of pieces in the gallery shows before. She uses traditional 2.25 film camera or camera film, and she'll scan the images into the computer. While she's on site, she'll take a number of different images of the same setting, and will recompose in the computer what she saw in her mind. She may take, some images of clouds while she's there and put them over the landscapes. These are some abstract works that she's been doing. She doesn't really do much abstract, but when she does them pretty well. This is another piece called Spring into Summer. I do have, as I was saying, I have a show that just opened of JD's work on Artsy. She's got some really wonderful landscapes, very local landscapes. I just wanted to show you a little bit of her other abstract work as well. Here you go. It's not in the show, but this was one of my favorite pieces. I had this in one of the shows previously. Okay, so that is the abstract show. I'm so pleased that everyone was able to join us and was able to give us a little bit of insight about their work, talk a little bit about their pieces. So pleased that everyone is on board with this online journey. It's the art world is trying to bounce back after everything that's been going on, and it seems that virtual right now is one alternative and one way to really get out there, get art out there to the world. The world right now, again, with the multiple things that are going on in this world, art can be a really healing way to express yourself, to get the emotions out. And again, I keep going back to emotions with abstract, but for me, it's all about emotions. I can look at a piece of abstract art and just put reality aside and just take in and experience what that piece of art is making me feel. And I think that really is the way art should be, whether it's abstract or landscape. So a number of all of the pieces really in this show are, do that for me. And I hope it does for you as well. The work is all available on Artsy through the rest of August. Please have a look. if you have any questions, speak up. I don't know if we can get any questions from YouTube folks, but there's a lot of people watching right now. You can always email me as well with any questions. Did any of the artists have any last minute, anything that they wanted to say last minute, or if not, then we'll close and enjoy our evening and enjoy some art and have a look at the work on the, not the walls, but on the virtual wall.
Thank you for all the work that went into this, Robert.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Again, thank you all the artists that joined us, everyone that watched. The work this meeting will be archived on the YouTube channel. But please, when you have a little time, there's also some great artist profiles on the YouTube channel. Last month I did an art and word show where art was inspired by poetry and poetry was inspired by art. So there's a whole program on YouTube of the work that was created and the poetry that was created inspired by that artwork. Yeah, have a look at that. And again, thanks everyone. Everyone, please be safe and keep creating art. Loving what's coming out of this. Oh, there's a show and there's a call coming out for like everyone else. I'm doing my pandemic show, so I want to see what everyone's creating in isolation. So word's coming out about that in probably the next day. So that'll be the next virtual show.
And Robert, I had a question. It's Bobby. You had mentioned your opening, but for some reason there was a glitch and I couldn't hear. I heard July, but I didn't hear the actual date.
Well, Socrates is slowly getting back to business, I suppose. And there are some shops that are opening now. I am going to open on July 3rd. We are going to be doing a first Friday in Socrates, a very safe and socially distanced first Friday. I'm taking care of someone that's compromised, so it's in my best interest and very important to me to keep safe. So I will do everything that I possibly can to keep myself safe and anyone that comes into the gallery. I just ask that anyone that comes to visit just work along with me. We'll keep each other safe. Okay, and
thank you.
In art. I got plenty of walls, and the internet has lots of walls that we can all. So I'm really pleased to be doing these. And again, I think that openings are going to be very different. The whole landscape of the art world is going to change, and we're all trying to feel our way through. I don't know how long it will be before the traditional openings happen again, where everyone gathers and meets and has a glass of wine or so. But in the meantime, I would love to continue to do events like this and really give the artists an opportunity to talk about their work to a much wider audience. So this, in addition to what's going on at the physical gallery, will be an extension to the gallery, and there'll be other opportunities as well to present your art on Artsy Virtual. Anyone else? Any questions? No? All right, great. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
And enjoy your art. All right.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.
Bye-bye.